Guys, it is the Muddy Puddle Squad here, and today I'm going to talk about the amount of supercentenarians that was likely in history. So, based on statistics, there's only been so many people born on this earth, and the odds of reaching certain ages are only so many. And before we begin, this chart is based on a 50% mortality rate for every year above 110. Which is the formula used to figure out the odds of supercentenarians. However, 50% is not always correct, as it kind of goes down a little bit as you get older. So I would say that these numbers are probably higher than accurate. But these are just to give a fair estimate of the amounts of supercentenarians we've had through history. And these are my personal reasons as to why we have never seen a man who is 130 years old or older, and probably most likely won't ever will, unfortunately. However, there may be advancements to medical science, but they'd have to be major breakthroughs. Anyway, let's get started. And the supercentenarians in history, this is probably likely over the last 8,000 years. So it's not like, I'll just explain it here in a minute. So in the last 8,000 years, it's likely we've seen 0 to 1, 124-year-old men, 1 to 2, 123-year-old men, an upper bound of 4 for 122-year-old men, an upper bound of 8 for a 121-year-old men, an upper bound of 16 for 120-year-old men, an upper bound of 32 for 119-year-old men, an upper bound of 64 for 118-year-old men, an upper bound of 128 for 117-year-old men, an upper bound of 256 for 116-year-old men, an upper bound of 512 for 115-year-old men, an upper bound of 1,024 for 114-year-old men, an upper bound of 2,048 for 113-year-old men, an upper bound of 4,096 for 112-year-old men, an upper bound of 8,192 for 111-year-old men, an upper bound of 16,384 for 110-year-old men. So I'm going to tell you guys right now why this is probably not... this is probably the most accurate chart that I was able to create because I'm not a math genius. But this is probably not quite accurate. It's probably a bit lower than that. I would say it's probably about... As this is a lower bound... Where's my cursor? There we go. This is a lower bound. The first number is a lower bound. So it's probably about half of this. Half of this to this number, in my opinion. But anyway, so these are probably the amount of men that we've seen reach such ages in history. Now you guys are wondering, why do we have, why is Anicio Rodriguez Alves at 116 the oldest man that we have who was fully validated? It was actually partially validated, but I'm sure he's going to become fully validated in the future. So I'll just say he's fully validated right now. But anyway, why is Anicio 116 the oldest validated man that we currently have in history when we have men from 117 to 124 that should have existed? Well, remember, this is the last 8,000 years. If a 124-year-old man existed at the beginning of this 8,000 years that we've been on this earth, of course he wouldn't be discovered today. So, this is throughout all of history. Think about all the cases in Africa, Asia, South America that have never been discovered. Think about all those cases that have never been discovered. Think about all the people that have lived in the past. What about the people that have lived, through the Roman times, the ancient Chinese times, the medieval times? Those men, of course, are not validated here. And this is also based on... since the beginning of time. So, there's no way that we're going to be able to validate every single person that has lived in the past 8,000 years. But, so these, this is likely what existed through history, and this is an upper bound. This is giving a generous calculation to it, which is why Jerome Kimura and Anicio Alves are the only men at 116 that have so far been fully validated. We have other men. We have another man Mr. Jose Flores, who you guys have probably seen my videos about, who is currently unvalidated, but likely to be the age claimed, which is why we haven't seen too many. I mean, there's 3 out of this many. 2 validated, obviously, and 1 potential, so a total of 3. But that's to me my reason why I don't think Marcelino Abad Tolentino is the age claimed. As what are the chances that we'd actually have our 123-year-old man at this time in history, and that he'd actually have all the documentation to prove it's very unlikely. So unfortunately, statistically, there's probably been no men that have actually made it to 125, unfortunately. But hopefully someday we will be able to validate somebody above 116. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Thanks, guys, for checking out this video. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Later!